Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russia has launched around 120 missiles and 90 drones in what he calls a massive combined airstrike on his country's energy structure. Well, the Foreign Minister, Andrei Sybiga, says that Russia launched one of the largest air attacks with drones and missiles against peaceful cities, sleeping civilians and critical infrastructure. Ukraine's energy operator announced emergency power cuts in the Kyiv region, and the bombardment also forced power cuts in 2 other regions in the east of the country. Well, people in the capital made their way to underground stations to shelter from this assault. Russia's defense ministry claimed that it attacked facilities that support Ukraine's defense industry. And further south, the Black Sea port of Odessa experienced a citywide power cut, and neighbouring Poland says that it scrambled fighter jets. In a statement, Warsaw confirmed that operations by Polish and Allied aircraft were underway. Well, our correspondent Paul Adams joined us from Dnipro in the east.
We had sirens in the early hours, and the latest information from the city was that 2 railway workers were killed, among 5 people killed across the country overnight, in what seems to have been the largest concerted Russian drone and missile attack, certainly since early September. And it does seem as though the principal targets were once again Ukraine's energy infrastructure. I was speaking to someone from one of the largest energy companies just a short time ago who said it looks like they're starting again. In other words, as winter arrives, and we have had the first snow here in the last few days, once again Russia turns its attention to Ukraine's energy infrastructure in an attempt to plunge this country into darkness during the most difficult months. So whether that is the beginning of such a campaign, we don't know, but it certainly looks that way. And from one end of the country to the other, we have had interruptions to power and a number of significant energy infrastructure targets hit, although we're not being told which ones.
And Paul, just to bring you up to date, the Russian Defense Ministry is saying, and this is coming to us via the Reuters news agency, that these energy infrastructure facilities, they're accusing them of supporting defense industry and military enterprises, which is why arguably they're saying that's why they targeted them. But arguably we're also hearing from Russia's foreign minister saying that civilians were targeted, that people were sleeping in their beds, they were targeted. So an ongoing escalation of what is a conflict already at crisis point.
Yes, I mean, what keeps a country going? It's the energy generating facilities, and that keeps people warm. And it also, of course, enables the country's industries, including their military industries, to keep functioning. So you attack the power infrastructure, you affect the entire country. And it is inevitable when these attacks are launched that civilians do end up being caught in it, either by direct strikes from missiles and drones, or by fragments of both missiles and drones being intercepted overhead. None of this would be happening if Russian attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure were not happening. It is part of what one senses is an effort by both sides to try and maximize their positions ahead of what is widely anticipated to be some change in US policy once Donald Trump takes office early next year. We're seeing the Russians gradually edging forward along the eastern front. And we're seeing the Ukrainians clinging on to that tiny fragment of Russian territory in the Kursk region. Everyone knows that the policy that the Biden administration has pursued over the past few years could be about to change, and change quite dramatically. President Zelensky himself said just the other night that the war could be over next year. There's a feeling that things are going to change. No one quite knows how.
So Paul Adams there, who joined us a little bit earlier on, he was in Dnipro in the east of Ukraine. Let's cross over to Warsaw, where we can speak to Professor Katarzyna Pizarska, who's the chair of the Warsaw Security Forum. Professor, when it comes to what we're seeing, those 120 missile strikes across Ukraine from Russia, 90 drone strikes, what's your reading into this escalation from Russia?
Hello, Katarzyna. Hello, Kasia. It's great to be here. First and foremost, I just came back from Ukraine after almost 2 weeks spent there, and I'm a regular to Ukraine. And I have to say that the situation in terms of air raids has really deteriorated. It's not only tonight. Actually, on an average in Kiev, you have to go down 2 or 3 times to shelter. And of course, some of these strikes are strikes on critical infrastructure, but the majority are actually on civilian objects. And the thing is that what Russia is trying to do in Ukraine is trying to break the spirit of the Ukrainians, is trying to exhaust the Ukrainians before the winter. And of course, these strikes, we look here from Poland, from Warsaw, with great worry. We, as you know, have had already 4 situations in which missiles from Russia have hit Polish territory, including one that flew over 400 kilometers into the central parts of Poland. So we not only have to put our jets up every time this happens, but we're also trying to find some kind of a common NATO response to start hitting these missiles also over, as we were asked by the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian territory. So we are in a situation today where definitely much more has to be done together as an alliance in NATO. Poland is ready to act, but in order to act, we need to have a number of green lights coming from the United States and other NATO member states.
Professor, so Poland's operational command of Poland's armed forces said that indeed Poland has activated all available forces and resources and it's scrambled those jets. Just tell us a little bit more about how that works, not least given that Poland is, as you mentioned, a NATO member.
So, of course, we have a large monitoring mission of our airspace, but so far we have not been shooting these missiles down. As you know, we have been speaking the entire year with President Zelensky's administration, talking about different ideas how we can aid the situation and at least partly protect at least western parts of Ukrainian territory. That would, of course, involve using our batteries and our air missile defense system. And when the missiles, Russian missiles, are approaching Polish territory, we would want to shoot them down if possible. The second thing we are trying to do to help the Ukrainians is actually to send almost 40, probably 14 MiG jets that we have. But again, these MiGs today are protecting Polish skies. We can only send them to Ukraine if we have some kind of security guarantees from NATO member states that they will in return protect our skies if these MiGs are actually transferred to Ukraine. So as you see, there's a lot of goodwill here to change the situation in Ukraine. I have personally been advocating for protecting Ukrainian sky since the beginning of the invasion. And I think this is truly critical. The Russians have a free hand in bombing every single day cities, civilians, and we are doing definitely not enough. Providing Ukraine with the limited amount of air missile defense, Patriot batteries, Iris batteries is not enough. We should definitely look at other options, but as you see, we are not all there. And I fear that with the change in the United States, the situation will only worsen.
Professor Katarzyna Pisarska, Chair of the Warsaw Security Forum, thank you very much for your time. And just to add, we do have a live page on those missiles landing in Ukraine on our website.